Hello, it's Chris C., the founding director of the Cardstack project. Today I'm talking to you about a product we've been working on called Cardstack Builder. So Cardstack Builder provides a user interface to construct all the card concepts and data model front-end code and back-end code necessary to build a application that's built up from part composed from little bits of information and functionality to form a larger workflow. So Cardstack Builder has been the goal that we have been trying to work towards in terms of all the aspects of the stack, the Cardstack full stack environment working together. The focus today will be on the product, on the process of which we rationalize the different aspects of the Cardstack Experience, the builder concept, the schema concept that we've discussed in previous one, but also more importantly, the ability for us to address the various needs of the constituents that allows us to reach the maximum number of users. So previously, as we were looking at the what we call the Cardmakers, the people who make cards, we came up with something called the inverse pyramid model. And the pyramid is inverse because the greatest number of people is on top, and then the highest leverage is on the bottom. So we want to build frameworks so that we, product people, back-end engineer, front-end engineer, web developer, can build up on these tool sets to reach the user. So that's essentially what we've done, right? Like we are a relatively small team, but working on very, very high leverage framework aspects of it. And that framework provides a lot of capability, server products, the Node.js code, the ability to index, whether it's cloud and blockchain sources, the ability to deal with authentication, security, grants, and all the stuff that you would expect in a full stack application framework. But unlike just an open source project, one of the things we're also doing is that we're building a product, and that's what we're talking about today. The product that allows us to go and give a complete experience that can be extended through back-end engineering resources if you want to connect to an enterprise system, or you want to customize a functionality or add a certain type of widgets or connect a certain type of user experience and animation to it with the ultimate goal of reaching web developers. So we're climbing up this pyramid, inverse pyramid or ladder, whatever you call it, so web developer can theme and create and customize this stuff. Now, all of these things require coding skills. And one of the things about coding skills is that this is something that users have. Like a lot of people know how to do coding. But the coding skills are actually quite a scarce commodity in this world. Not everybody is a developer. In fact, probably less than 1% or even less than 0.1% of the entire world's populations are developers. So what happens if you don't know how to code? We want to be able to serve those users as well. And that's what we're doing now. We want to be able to lift ourselves away from just what developers or engineers or architects can do and say, how can we serve the power users, the millions of people that know how to use Excel, that know how to configure a SaaS software for their needs, whether it's Salesforce.com and an enterprise sale or Airtable on a collaborative, or even tools like Notion or configuring an invoicing tool. People know how to use software and they're using the software to create the reality. But here's the thing. We want to make sure that whatever we do to serve the power users, we don't accidentally require them to learn coding. Because coding is just going to be a really strict differentiator where people who know how to code is one category and everybody who doesn't know how to code, which is most of humanity, don't want to do that. So our goal is to say, can we give the entire power of the Cardstack environment, the Cardstack architecture, and give those tools to power users so you don't see any of the programming aspects. You don't have to learn the APIs. You don't have to learn how to type and read the documentation. Just by understanding the card abstraction and card concept, you're able to be productive within an environment to construct something that is a substitute of a web development project. You have to outsource, you hire a firm, offshore, onshore to go build it. Can we build that? And the idea is absolutely. People do amazing things on their own using Excel and stuff like that. But with us, with cards, we start with the different primitives. And that's what we are going to talk about today. So let's look at what the power user is going to see. Well, there is a card. We're viewing it. It's an account card. An account card can represent a user. It can represent an organization. It has certain fields that tells you that this is a person who has an account at our bank, account in our company, or account with that you're dealing with a customer or something like that. The anatomy of the card is that a card is a type of data. It's a schema or tab in Excel or a schema or table in the database. It contains a bunch of fields. Could be the name of the person, could be the address, or could be some notes about them. And when you create a card, when you create a screen on a software app or web app, you want to be able to say, okay, given this person who has this account, I want to send in an invoice. I want to provision them a service. And that's essentially the power of Cardstack, which is that we want to make it's possible for you to create many, many different type of cards. Some of them come with the environment, some of them you build yourself. So let's go back to this example and see kind of what's going on here. So if you look at the concept, we always say, oh, everything is a card. Yeah, account is card, an invoice is a card, a user is a card, a membership is a card. That makes sense. But there's something a little deeper going on here, which is that if you actually look at the obvious thing that is a card, so account is definitely a card. It contains a bunch of fields. But if there's a field called address, as we'll talk about later in the talk, address itself is also a card, right? Because it contains its own field. It may have a little control to do a Google lookup, so you can actually like auto-complete the addresses. The invoice, the button to send the invoice, the button to copy the information from this account and issue another invoice is also another card. To be able to do this means that we need to have the concept that everything is a card, but card can be embedded within a card, and that's going to be a primary aspect of what we're talking about today. So let's go dive right in. So when you have a card that has this set of fields, you want to be able to edit them. So this is something that you encounter, someone sent it to you, or someone already entered to the system. If you want to edit it, what you do is you turn each of the fields into the corresponding edit view. So this particular field here now becomes an editable text field for name. This field, which is an address field, will now have a custom widget for an address card. Now, here's a cool part. The address card is not actually made by you. It comes with the system or is shared by other people in the environment. And then the third field, a memo field, will be here. And now you can go ahead and use the capability of this built-in field editor and go make the thing. But how did that card come into place in the first place? So the account card is actually constructed one column or one row at a time, something like adding columns on the website. So you have a catalog of all the pre-built fields. Some of them are pretty simple, like a text field. Some of them like address card or like an event card or calendar invite card. It's something that you're gonna drag into this thing and insert the fourth field of which this card. And this card now contains a custom widget from an existing address card, so it comes with all the fields. So what does that look like? So we can pop that out and say, okay, like opening a folder on your computer, what are the fields as part of an address card? Well, it turns out it's address, one, state, zip code, and whatever it might be. And that's kind of zoomed out if you can click on them. Now, an address card could contain something else, and you can double click and then it opens it on within this environment. The key here is that this environment, which we call the Cardstack Builder, is actually the ability for you to not only assemble from the core fields that you see in the catalog, but also construct your own thing. So if you have a concept of a customer or an agent or a coach, if you're in a life coaching business, you might want to figure out what the fields that would describe a coach would be. Save that card, and now you have a card that you can fill it out. But in the future, if you want to create a new kind of client packet and you want to assign a coach to a particular client, now you can say assign coach and drag the coach card in it, and now you can either fill out with new information about the name of the coach or reuse an existing coach, Bill, Anna, whatever it might be, and drag that card, that person's with the photos and stuff like that, into that field in the application. So this Cardstack Builder is essentially have this idea that the shared common information is in the catalog, and that could include things that's publicly available or only within your team. You drag those as fields within the card you want to make, coach or something like that, and then it includes other fields on it. If you want to configure it, layout, whether it's required, whether you want a date to be arranged from one date or a particular time, you can configure by clicking on them and fine tune what does it mean to do it. The key here is that this is what developers do, right? When developers go and configure, oh, I can customize this for you, I can tweak this form for you, they're going out there using software code, like, editor, and typing all this configuration. What we've done in Cardstack is because of the architecture, because we own the full stack all the way to the bottom part, which is the revision control system for the code and the official authoritative data and the revision history of those data that you type in. We're able to allow you to make edits within this card builder environment that is actually doing exactly the same thing, is if a developer were to make the code in a code editor. They are actually identical consequences in the Cardstack bottom layer, except the developer used code, which by the way, they can still do that, right? Our entire system, because this card builder is writing code for you, you don't see it, but it's actually doing that. If a developer say, hey, you really screwed up this thing, let me go into the code and make some changes using manual typing, they're actually affecting and changing the model. Once the developer checking the changes, your account cards are, oh, thank you. You fixed the bugs I made before you reverted to a previous change. All the changes you're making in Card Builder is actually revision controlled, so you can go back to a previous version the same way a developer writing changes to the code can be revision controlled and go back to previous version. So that's the Cardstack Builder, and we will show demos of what that looks like in the future. But let's go back and into our overall map and see how this relates to the overall experience. Now, what you've done in Cardstack Builder, when you define the schema, is you're defining what fields go into something. And that is not just a backend. You actually get, with it, this set of 3 modes. Once you configure the card and you set up the fields, 1, 2, 3, you get an edit control, so allows the user or your staff or something like that to fill in the name, address, and memo field. And then when you save this, right, when you do the save action, your clients or your coaches or whoever needs to see it, and we have a grant system, we'll give the right people the right permission to see not only which card, but also which field within which card. They will be able to see 1, 2, 3, and then have a button to say provision services, right? So this 3 views, 1, 2, 3, are like a pair, well, a triplet, I should say, where once you build the schema, we auto-generate a default edit view, so you don't have to go and figure out how to do a drop downs. If you have a thing that has a multiple list, it will automatically create a drop down, and we will lay it out nicely so you can see a list of 3 people or 3 coaches that's working with that person or date range that happens. So that's the idea of this code, what we call built-in, right? See the word built-in, built-in, built-in. But what if you're a web developer and you want to customize the layout? Say, hey, this account card is great, but I work for a personal training company and they want their account to look really, really nice, right? And that's when we go and build these kind of custom layout component. Now, one thing is that one of the hardest thing to do in building a kind of off-the-shelf a SaaS builder program, like a software builder program, is then to allow that SaaS builder program to be themable so it looks completely custom. You usually get one or the other, right? You can either customize custom software and make it look exactly you want, and you leverage none of the common characteristic in off-the-shelf software, or you use off-the-shelf software and you can barely get your logo and change the color. Cardstack is trying to do the impossible, which is that you have the ability to build this quickly by dragging and dropping, and you can theme it later on. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So the idea here is that once you have this standard view and edit mode, those modes are not special. They're just a list of views or list of layout that's available that you can choose for your card. And one of the layout could be a custom layout. So you switch from the built-in view to a custom layout. In this case, the custom layout has a gradient on it, and it lays it out, instead of one on top of each other, the field names to the right of it. Or it could be, really, really fancy and have a person exercising in the back of it, or it doesn't really matter. And this custom card uses exactly the same features as the card below. So when you go edit this, again, it's very easy to make a theme that has a edit control. And what happens is that all the edit controls are built in to the environment. So if you create a field that lays out your company name in a bigger one, we automatically make any text field editable in place. So you can just go in and type and change the name. The font size just shows up right away. You don't have to go preview it. Now, sometimes we couldn't do that. Let's say you have an edit address thing that you need to look up the address using Google. We will then pop it out, have an overlay, a little modal that goes on top, and you can make that changes there. And when you save it, then go back and then we'll actually see the results. But here's the thing. The part of this address card that pops up is actually shared within the standard view and your custom view. So your custom view doesn't have to redo the hierarchy of cards you go into the past. So that's the magic of it. The in-place editing allows you to control the editing that you want to make specific for your user experience. You can even override the way user type in an account number, look it up, but it can leverage existing UI that comes with the cards that you're talking about to make that happen. And that's the key about assembling application is not requiring people to redo everything from scratch, which is very expensive and a lot of custom development and a lot of risk and delivery risk and timeline and timetable, or I can't get to the UI until the back end is done, all this kind of stuff. You get a working app end to end with default fields right away. And then you can decide how much of the customization is important. If you just want to customize the layout for the homepage, great. Or the way it displays a coach, so you can use it on a website as like, this is our team. Well, tweak that. If you need to go like, I need a special edit control for scheduling because we have this specific thing, you can then hire a front-end developer who will read the documentation on Cardstack, create a new type of control, a type of UI component, and swap out the one that's default with the one specific for your business. But that's the key. You only want to custom build stuff that is unique to you. This is not all that different than like how you would effectively furnish an apartment or a house, right? You want to take off-the-shelf stuff from IKEA to start, or you want to buy something from a premium store that's really important to you, and you have this one dining table you really want to do, and you custom mill it with a artisan or carpenter. But you don't want to have a carpenter go and build you a door unless it's a bathroom door. Just take something off the shelf. So this idea of being able to choose within this very complicated nested card assemble application, what part is important for you to customize the layout is the type of efficiency you want to bring to the market. Now, so once we have this card and you've added the data, we want to talk about how you can actually make this more than just a CMS, more than the system that just makes something happen. So in this case, you have this account card and you decide to send the invoice. And what does it really mean to send an invoice? What it means is that there are certain fields, such as the Acme Inc. identity, the account information. That's a field in an invoice. In the invoice, there's an account field. So we're just going to embed this account card inside that. And then we collect additional information such as payment type, amount due, and when it's due. And the send invoice button essentially just create another card called an invoice card in a multi-step workflow, and then kind of copy out information without transcription error, without copy and pasting. It actually embeds the card as the account in here, right? And then it adds additional field, and then you can set up the payment. In this case, these payments will be, hey, what payment method do you support? I support Visa, PayPal, Bitcoin, Ether, whatever it might be you want to do. And these cards, these payment methods are also cards themselves. So you now can, like Lego block, you can build up your application. Oh, I accept this particular type of payment method. I accept ClassPass or something that's a membership that allows me to not have to charge you if you can just give me an account. You don't have to do any integration. You just drag the card and accept the payment method, and that is all done. And the key here is that as the catalog of cards grow, not only within one environment, your instance of Cardstack, but in the catalog that's shared across all people who use Cardstack. It's like an app store or like a component gallery or a registry of software code. It's a shared folder of templates. Anything that you made that you believe as a developer or as a power users that you want other people to leverage, hey, I'm an accounting expert, here's a budgeting toolkit, you can bring that into the catalog and people can drag your budgeting thing into that card and use it as a field. So it's confined and you can compose it with other things. And then when you're done, this particular workflow has another aspect, which is, we want to be able to allow people to sequentially initiate workflows. So like going step 1, step 2, step 3, like checking out, it's very helpful. But once you're like sending someone an invoice, for example, you want to be able to go back and forth, maybe negotiate, maybe to provide new context and details. And that's when the card gets embedded within another concept called thread. A thread is a container that, like a Slack or direct message or messaging application, where the invoice card that you created through this chaining process from an account to an invoice with payment and then becomes an invoice card, these are all condensed and kind of embedded within this nice little bite-sized chunks. You can embed it, and now that invoice card, when you go back and forth, can lead to and chain in a similar way we just discussed with action chaining and card chaining to a payment card of whatever payment method is done. What's cool about it is that you don't have to build a payment card. When you drag the accept the payment method, that card includes when it's actually initiated the right payment method that comes out of it. So that allows us to, just on currency and payment, support many type of checkout workflow because the card's payment UI, right, for paying using Visa, paying using a bank account, or paying using Bitcoin or paying using some sort of subscription service will be entirely different, right? So that usually requires people to do a lot of system integration. For my e-commerce store support 3 or 4 things, I need to use this SaaS platform and integration. But with Cardstack, when the payment card needs to be interacted with, it's standalone in a thread. You can just interact with it, and that will be the case. So that's kind of zooming out what we call the Cardstack workflow. So we've talked about 2 things today. One is the Cardstack Builder, which allows you to, without programming skills, do the same thing that our developers and our partners developer has done, which is build a full stack Cardstack-based application, but you can now just do it using drag and drop in your mouse. And then with that, you get the free features of workflow, which is change to get an action. This is something we're working on. The infrastructure is very much shared because it's all based on cards and there's widgets and there's rendering and view mode, edit mode, and configure mode. But that's the idea here. So zooming out and kind of looking at a summary of it all, we have essentially the map of both the card builder and the Cardstack workflow. So a quick thing, the card is created here, and then it gets edited and viewed. You can skin it, and then once it's fully themed and skinned, you can use it as your own application. But if your application needs to collaborate with various parties, in and out of your organization, or may require you to tap into other people, say, hey, before I can pay you, you need to sign this confidentiality agreement. That could be a different card that other people have used. And then in the thread, which is the final piece of the puzzle, you can mix these things together in a very organic workflow, which we call the chronological workflow for coordination. So it's all based on this chat room idea. Some very structural, sequential, step 1, step 2, ability to do a very data-driven, schema-driven workflow here. So that's the Cardstack Builder and workflow, all built on everything that we've discussed with the community over the last year and a half. A lot of the basic foundation on the hub is actually even backdated to that. This is 3-4 years of work that goes into the different aspects of it. As we mentioned in the start of this talk, we're trying to build this inverse pyramid model, but from an architectural point of view, the pyramid is actually inverse. You're building a foundation and you're kind of climbing up as your capability firms up. So while we have a documentation that covers most of the use case, you can, as a developer, build Cardstack application. We've got sample project template you can go start with. We know that learning how to build something, even in a tool that has full documentation, is challenging, a new tool. So by building this builder on top for power users to bypass the learning step, and then creating an app that has the gaps, if whatever gaps is there, so for people to say, hey, let me go in and extend these features, bring in a backend engineer to connect to an existing accounting system, bringing a front-end engineer to build a new booking screen, a booking module. Those are the type of ability to bring work into the kind of the software system where you have a running app and you ask hiring developer who have JavaScript skill or web development skill to extend it versus going to, hey, can you build this whole thing from scratch for me? This is a great prototyping tool, but unlike a prototyping tool, a design tool like Figma or XD or something like that, when you're done with building it in Card Builder, you have a live app that's hosted, not just a video of a live app or a prototype. It's actually the real thing. So there is a couple of things that's going on right now. The 3 tracks of development that is we're conducting to make Card Builder into something that we can launch on the user and get a lot of people using it. One of which is the card schema, which is the underlying definition of what a card is. This is covered in the previous talk. And this card schema is critical because it allows for mobility of card across different hubs and different workflows and threads by encapsulating both the definition of the card, the form fields, as well as the template. We're able to say, I will skin or modify this template but not affect the rest of the app. So combining card schema and our template layout compilation system, which is based on a lot of work that our team has done in the JavaScript front-end framework space, with our focus being Ember. I know there are people doing React and Vue, but they're very similar foundations on how we make the browser to do amazing things, and we're definitely taking the combination of our data architecture and combining with the rendering architecture that makes this experience possible. So please follow along if you're a developer on the Card Host project in our main GitHub mono repo called Cardstack on github.com. The second track of the thing is something that I think you're seeing different aspects of it when we were have different verbs like, oh, we're going to pop this out, we're going to have an overlay, or we're going to split it apart and show the different fields in them. The composable UI system is something that we did a lot of thinking around, and I'm going to give a talk about what the boxel design system would be. It's an attempt to kind of revisit what a design system is, right? So material design from Google started the whole design system movement, creating a consistent way of thinking about layers and buttons and how things interact. The Android operating system is very much based on the spirit and the philosophy of material design. When I first started the Cardstack project, that's when material design first came out. I was extremely inspired what they want to do. But material design is very good for user-facing application, where the developer builds something and the user just using it, tapping on it, looking up maps, all very efficient, very mobile-focused. We want to build a system where the user is not just experiencing an application, but they're actually building it. And so the inspiration here is you want a user to compose something themselves, drag and drop. They can do it on Excel, they can do it on a desktop. But on the web, things are not very composable. It's usually done for you by a very talented development team. So we're going to do a demo in a couple of weeks on what that will look like and the theory that goes into this one. So watch out for that work. A lot of the actual stuff that we are demonstrating in the Cardstack Builder is directly part of the design system. And obviously, we invite the community to not only test out Cardstack Builder, but also help us refine the philosophy there. And then the final track is this idea of the catalog of pre-built cards for common use cases. So you don't want to go to a card builder and only have a text field and a number field to start, because that's a lot of time. It takes a long time for you to get there. And in Excel, that's kind of what you're doing, right? When you're starting with Excel, you got like numbers, date, and text, and that's all you have. And people on those three primitives do a lot of amazing things. They build up entire financial dashboard on those concepts. But on the web, we don't think in terms of just text strings and dates, right? We have concepts of like an event, a YouTube widget, a video player, a RSVP widget. There's many things that's been built, but they're not as composable than Excel. They're more like, images you can paste together onto a blog page, but not something that works very well together. Whereas Excel, the more you build, the more powerful your application becomes. So could we get the best of both worlds? And the answer is yes. So we're looking to unify and publish these common cards, and we have done something around data collection, form use cases, content management. Cardstack has a history on being able to construct fairly sophisticated web pages that's themed, asset encapsulation around both crypto and then regular finances, of saying, hey, this card represents my bank balance or my transaction or receipt. A workflow orchestration is bringing those things together. So fill out this form, and then I'll give you some content, you send something back, and then I'll pay you. So that will be combining data, content, and assets in a workflow. So these cards will be built not only as cards you can use, but you can also use these cards as fields. So if you need, here, just give me a proposal, and I want to give you a rich text template like Medium or something like that, you can like format it very nicely. You can actually just say, I want a Medium blog post as a field as you submit this packet for this, conference talk or something like that. That's very hard to do today. With Cardstack, you just drag a rich text article card inside a field and say, yeah, fill this out and provide some instruction, send that as a workflow. Very cool stuff. So the catalog will be built. As you guys heard about, we want to make this catalog extremely decentralized. So initially, we're going to put the catalog in GitHub. So all the contribution of the different cards that are formatted in Card Schema v2 will be in GitHub repository, and our developers and our team will approve what gets kind of added to it, official list. But it would be great for us to use some of the concept of token curated registry and this different type of using that decentralization spirit and smart contract to determine whether there's a holding area for new submissions that hasn't been approved or hasn't been very popular, and then only people who really know what they do can drag those cards or use them in the code. But as those become no security risk, nobody's stealing data, then get promoted to a more general catalog. It's an excellent use of the type of blockchain infrastructure and the tools that we built on the Ethereum, which is transferring a lot of the logic of controlling who can commit something to the list from a single developer or team of developers deciding to something that's governed by a smart contract. And that's the Ethereum open source code base is already out there. That's going to be basically what we're using to build up this decentralized catalog. So the schema system, well on the way, and we're working on that. And we're now working on the UI on the boxel design system. And then once we have that, we'll actually use our own tool, use our own builder tools to build a catalog cards that people can use as a template. So that's it. The quick introduction and preview on the card builder call it a product, call it an MVP. This is obviously the big payoff on being able to say, with all the infrastructure we built, we want people to understand what Cardstack can do. And this map that I ran you through hopefully give you a sense of what is possible. And more importantly, I would love to get your feedback, especially as we put a beta list together and get people playing around with it and see what kind of cards you can build with the parts you have, and also sharing the templates and the fields you've created and the cards you created to a broader community to really provide a decentralized alternative to SaaS software and allowing people to pay one subscription to the community, to a commons, and then have that be proportionally allocated based on what tools one team use. The personal training team will use a different team than the religious missionary team. But they're all software that captures data. You own the data. It's all written into the hub. You can control it, version control, and see the history of everything that you do. So a lot of the spirit that is part of Cardstack is the philosophy and underpinning of why we do it this way. But at the end of the day, people is going to look at an application, play with it, fall in love with it, feel very powerful, creating new reality, creating new software without coding. And that's what we hope that we're going to be able to do with the tools we put in front of them. So thank you very much for your time today. We'll give you guys more update on other aspects, including the technical aspects and the design system in coming weeks and days.